Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. And a very welcome to each and every one of us this evening. Thank you so much for honoring us with your time. And thank you so much for considering this a worthy conversation to join. It is my honor and privilege to host you along with my absolutely fantastic panelists. So let me say first, before I introduce myself, that please, as you come in, just tell us your name, where you're joining from, if you haven't already. We look forward to connecting with you at a deeper level after this time out. So my name is Audrey Joe-Ezigbo, and I am delighted to moderate this conversation today. I am an entrepreneur of almost 29 years now. I have built my little venture then into quite a formidable business in the gas industry today. I'm a wife, I'm a mother of four children, I am an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, a life and business coach, and I am a mentor to many people. I am the impactonaire, and I'm a woman that is charged with the responsibility to build a community of impact billionaires, people who want to steward their resources such as to give God glory and to better the lives of mankind. And for me, my journey with you is actually to help you to unleash the most profitable expression of yourself. And why does this matter? Well, I think as we go along in the conversation today, you will find out. This evening, we're going to be talking about something that we think is very important as we start off. This is our very first in the end game now for next series of webinars. And today we're talking about navigating life's transitions. So this is conversation we have said is for men and women who are between the ages of 40 and 60. Now, I don't know about you, but literally every time I sit down to process it, it seems to me that I was 16 just yesterday. And now, as I sit here, I can almost tell you that even though I'm in my early 50s, I suspect that I will be touching 60 sooner than later. And you can't but sometimes sit down and think, where did all these decades go? Along that is the reality that life is happening and is happening. We can't control time, so it flies regardless. And along with this passage of time, of course, then comes all the many vagaries and vicissitudes that we face in life, many, many transitions that come from both the expected and the unexpected events that we go through. And indeed, before our very eyes, we, we become our parents. Wow. So as the world is moving along and as technology is changing, and as skilled and as gifted as we used to be, truth is, as we age, we find ourselves, if we're not more intentional, becoming a bit less adept in the areas where we were once the kings and the queens. And many times it's a scary journey and it's a journey you're going on by yourself. And there's never enough time in the busyness and the many responsibilities that we carry for us to step back and process how we can intentionally steward our trajectory so that we thrive all the way through to the end. So today we're going to start the first in a series of very critical conversations around thriving through these transitions of life as we're getting older. And today, to walk through these conversations with me, I have three fabulous people. I have Mrs. Inyang Sami Orumbe, the retirement planning queen herself. I have, of course, Mr. Peter Bamkole, Bamki as we call him. And Bamki is the enterprise builder. And along with them, we have Mrs. Enife Atobiloye. She is a human resource expert. And we're going to be talking today. Let me say first and foremost that this is not one of those webinars where we're going to be throwing facts and figures at you. No, no, no. These are real life, honest to God conversations based on our own lives and the lives that we want to see every other person live. So sit back and just enjoy today. We're going to spend about 45 minutes to an hour talking a bit and then open up for questions and answers. As we go along, please do drop your comments and your questions in the chat box, and then we'll highlight them as we go along. And then if we're not able to address all of them, we're happy if you send your email to just connect with you outside of this as we go along. And of course, we ask you that as we go through, if you have any major aha moments, please, please, please share them with us as well. So, Enife, Inyang, Peter, or Bamki, as I call you, as everybody calls you actually. I would like you to start by taking 2 minutes to just tell us a bit about yourselves. before we get into some questions that I would like to ask of you that I think are going to be useful in this conversation with the audience today. I will do ladies first, Bamki. So here we go. Ian, would you want to take the lead?
I'll gladly do. Thank you, Audrey. Hi, everyone. My name is Yang Samuel Rungbe. I have about 35 or more years of corporate experience. I retired long time ago, but I always like to say that I'm in my second career now. I've gone through banking, telcos. I've been in pensions industry, and I work in asset management. And right now, I run a consulting firm, with two partners, and I'm also the founder of the Bloomberg platform, where I get to coach people and prepare them for retirement. So that's essentially what I do. So those are my passions. It's so great to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Anything? You're muted.
Oh, hello everyone. It's really good to be here, and then it's good to have you. Just a quick one on me. I have about 3 years shy of 30 work experience, and I'm still going. I pretty much have a background in human resources. I have worked as a practitioner, and then I have consulted for well over 20 years now, consulting in human resources. And in recent times, I've been focusing much more on leadership development. And my passion really is helping professionals maximize their potentials along their career trajectory. And like I said before, it's nice to be here.
All right, Elise, thank you. Bamki,
Yes.
maybe you want to check your device. You have a second device. We have a bit of an echo. Yeah, while you're doing
Okay.
that, Bamki, please go ahead.
Okay.
Introduce
All right.
Uh, okay. Thank you very much for having me today. It's a great pleasure. Um, I believe I have 1 year shy of 40 since I've been working. Of course, I've had stings I started off with oil and gas, two majors, and then moved into public service with Lagos State, and then been an entrepreneur, and now I've been in education for maybe 20 years now. So in all, I've moved from one sector to the other, and some of the learnings that I've had, struggling with growing up, but also trying to keep pace with how you structure yourself for 40, 50, 60 when you retire. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bamki. So I'm actually going to be starting with anything. We're talking about navigating life's transitions, and I'm just wondering, in your experience as an HR professional, what is it that has been your experience when it comes to people in this 40 to 60-year age bracket in terms of their professional career trajectories, and why a conversation like this would be important to them? Anything?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, it's an interesting question. In my experience, I get to work with, particularly these days. Is it clearer now?
The voice is clear, very clear, yes.
Oh, super. Particularly these days, I have worked with a lot of professionals at all levels, focusing much more on leadership these days. And what I've come to find out is that at the end of the day, the whole definition of career, the picture, or if you like, the concept of career that we have it's interestingly tilted. So when a professional is talking about his career, he's talking about from when for the ones who, speak with an expanded scope, they're talking about from when I started studying to become a medical doctor until now that I am a doctor. And, and so most of their projections are around working until they stop working. Looks like we've lost Audrey for a bit, but she's going to come back on. And so really, it's really about the focus is quite exclusive of what I call a critical omission, and that's the after work years. Because if you look at your work life, you will find out that you spend significant part of your whole life at work. And work is not your definition of career, because career is so you find out that very often we talk about career in terms of what you see people talk about. Oh, in my career I want to, people's life, when you see people and say, tell me what your vision is, and they're talking much more around getting to the height of their career, it's almost as if there's a blur after career excellence, and that career being work excellence, and that concept itself has introduced a lot of limitations, particularly to the career professionals. So, for instance, you find out that the scope definitely is very limited. The scope of perspectives and therefore planning and even aspiration, right? So you find out people, post-work is kind of hazy in the mind of people. Actually, sometimes morbid, because when they begin to talk about post-work, there's all, generally this fear about, how is it going to look like? Because during career, or rather during career in quotes, the definition of career being work, the focus has just really been about excelling at work during my work time, with not enough, if you like, attention to what happens after that. It carries its implication, limited scope of planning, limited perspective in terms of how I even plan my life. You see people carry work is like the destination, So many people just, aspire. You find out, you see somebody who's doing so well. I coach people to become CEOs. And we walk the journey, and you find out that being the CEO sometimes is the end of the journey for a lot of people. I just want to reach the height of my career, and the height of my career means, when I do well at work. And that in itself makes you find out that as a result of that, people are defined by their career, by their work, because work has become life. So so I am the MD of, even after I retire, very often you see people introducing themselves, I'm ex-MD, something, just because that's where relevance seems to be coming from. Audrey, I hope I'm not taking too much time here.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say that, if we, I mean, I totally understand this. This is part of the challenge, that when we get to, sorry, I want to pause and ask the audience. I'm seeing some people saying they can't hear. If you can hear, can you hear us? Please just put it in the chat. Okay. Okay, excellent. So the thing with talking about work, that work becomes this thing that so encapsulates our lives, and it's kind of normal and understandable. Remember that we all went to school, and the end objective was to get a great job. I mean, of course, I remember we're in a certain age bracket. For the younger ones now, when we're discussing the issue of finish school and go to work, they're kind of looking at you like, I don't quite think so. They are too creative and too innovative to just be thinking specifically of a corporate job. But many of us, it was about you finish school, you go to work. And as we're building within that workspace, of course, it's about the career trajectory, about the promotions, and you want to become the head, you want to become the GM, the deputy managing director, the CEO, and so on. And those are very laudable aspirations. But the thing is that as we also get to this point where we're having the conversations about transitioning and getting older, what it is that I hear you say is that we can get so locked into that we miss the fact that at some point there will be no complimentary card, no ID card that gives you a badge of identity. And the question now becomes, who are you really? So if I would go to you, Peter, so when, Enife is, corporate, that's her space, you are the enterprise builder. And so when I think about you, the question that pops to my mind is that people who run their own businesses, people like myself, right, we tend to have very different concerns from those who actually work in corporate jobs, right? So if we're running smaller businesses, mid-sized businesses, even sometimes bigger businesses, insofar as we are the business leaders, our perspectives are kind of different. And I'm wondering, for you, you've dealt with a lot of Nigerian entrepreneurs. What has been your experience around this thing of building up to where we begin to discuss succession? Because we're getting older and we must definitely start thinking about what is the next. Do you think that we're largely adverse to or reluctant to be succeeded? Or is it perhaps like Enife said, that we've so found ourselves in the identity of our businesses that we don't even realize that we can be someone else outside of it? So what are your thoughts for entrepreneurs who are in this age bracket? What are your thoughts and
Okay,
experiences?
the first thing is that if you are a startup, it's different from when you're already in a business that is running well. When you are a startup, your focal point is, I need to get this venture working. And you can spend the first 5 years running through this and nothing else matters to you. And that's okay. And then you can begin to make significant progress. And all that matters to you is that, how can I expand from this one stage to multi-stage to this and that? And before you blink, like you said, you're already in your 40s, you're already in your 50s. And then that is where the problem starts. Because then you say, if I've been able to build this very well, then maybe I have all the ideas. Maybe I can make even bigger things to happen. And so you begin to say, without me, nothing serious will happen. And whether it is right or wrong, you just stay there. And I'm saying this I pioneered EDC, and I've been there. I just left there a couple of months ago, moving on to something else. And honestly speaking, I am doing so much since January. Yet there are days I wake up and I say to myself, oh my God, this my EDC, as if it's my baby, and I want to go back and stroke the hair and things like that. And this is me, that I am super busy. I don't even have time for them anymore. But then I still miss maybe going to teach. So maybe once in a while I go to teach, like today I went there to teach. Now imagine somebody that did not plan for something else after that. That person is psychologically down. That person is not prepared in any way. And that will make the entrepreneur to cling on to that thing.
Right.
In the book I'm writing right now, succession is one chapter. And the way I described it is like, think of it as a relay race. You could be the one starting the relay, and you could be a fantastic runner. Now, there are 7 of you on the track, or maybe 8, and you are like yards away from them. So you are doing absolutely well. However, when you need to change the baton, you need to change it. If people keep hailing you on and you keep going, others that have changed the baton, they will overtake you. And that seems to be what happens to us when we don't change the baton when we are supposed to change it. There are other ways in which you can keep yourself busy. Most entrepreneurs get locked at that stage where they need to change the baton, and it's a big. But I will come around maybe later and I will say a few more things. But let me
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is the thing. I mean, what I'm still hearing is that it's actually very common, whether you are a business owner or you're just someone who has risen to a certain senior level in the corporate space, that actually you are defined by your position. You are defined by that 9 to 5. You are defined by the title, and the perks that go with it, and the respect that you get. And then, when I think about our culture, for instance, in Nigeria and Africa, that whole culture of respect and honor because someone is senior or older or in a position ahead of you. What that means is that if we're not careful, we are actually building a castle in the sky. And one day you have to open the castle door and step out. And that would be an interesting day indeed. So let me come to Ian, the retirement queen. And my question for you is this. So you, as you explained when we've talked about who you are, your life has been like a whole series of transitions. You've transited from corporate, I mean, different corporate experiences. You've transitioned into, running your own business. More recently, you've transitioned into, well, you're still running your business, but you're also starting the Bloombox platform. So you're coaching, you're training, and so many other things. Fabulous work you're doing, and pitching your tent also in that retirement space. And I'm just wondering, what were you prepared, or did life catch you unawares, or has this been an intentional journey, is really my big question. How have you managed to, well, it kind of looks effortless to me, but maybe you want to tell us something different, because I mean, here you are, how many decades? I don't know if I can be announcing your age on air, but you put me to shame any day, anytime, with everything that you've done. So can you share some of the key learnings from your own trajectory of transitions, that a woman who, wow, I mean, let me just let you speak. I just think your trajectory has been phenomenal, and I'm actually tracking you as someone who is showing me how to continue to be visible, valuable, creating value and dispensing value is what I always say, well into your latter years. So let me let you answer that.
Oh, thank you so much, Audrey. You're very kind with your compliments. Okay, so for me, yes, I mean, in my career, I pivoted quite a bit, from banking to telecoms to pensions industry to asset management. And, in the last two assignments, though, I was a part of the startup process. And I just want us to note that. So stepping away from the 9 to 5 work actually and truthfully caught me a bit unawares. And I say this because apparently I wasn't quite as ready as I thought I would be. So my retirement vocation wasn't a tight plan, I discovered. And of course, my nest egg was nothing to write home about. At the time, my husband and I were supporting our children abroad and, supporting them in dollars, right? So, however, there were some things I had been intentional about, I had been intentional about building and nurturing positive relationships all my life, and I still am. I had been intentional about constantly rebranding myself and staying relevant wherever I was. I had embraced technology, I'd embraced the digital fully, understanding that that was the future, you know. I'd been intentional also about upskilling myself every step along the way.
Mm,
I was also quite a voracious, consumer of knowledge, right? I cultivated friendships of, younger people who up till now, I deliberately, keep in my circle. Because, I mean, you have no idea when you are growing older, one of the ways to stay relevant and stay on top of your game is to make sure that you are listening to the younger ones. I mean, I don't even joke with them because I learned so much from them. There's a lot of reverse mentoring, going on there. And so within 2 years into my retirement now from the corporate sector, I birthed a business, along with, two other ladies. And so this transition called in my experience, in being a pioneer staff of two of the organizations I talked about. And now they're quite very successful organizations. The experience was an asset on its own. And as a matter of fact, I tell myself now that having done that, I'm now in my second career. And I'm still doing that, but I've also transitioned into this, retirement planning vocation. This was born out of, a passion, that I had, I guess, based on my experience in the pensions industry, to ensure that everyone was way more deliberate than I was in planning for this season of life. Because sometimes you think you're on top, but I mean, when you then come into it, you realize that no, you truly hadn't planned. So it is what drives me in what I do now. I mean, in the Bloombox platform. And so the thing is, if I knew more then than I know now, I might have done things a lot better, And so early planning is really, really important.
mhm.
Um, but but people keep asking me that, okay, yes, this is how yours was, but when is the best time, to start this?
Right.
And it's a very important question because,
Okay,
and I want,
I'm going to come back to you on this
okay,
question. Actually, I'm
okay,
going to come back to you because that was actually my next question for you to say that, when will be the best time. So let's come to that. Anyway, so I
Yeah.
want to ask the question, because we have a lot of people who are on this webinar who are in the corporate space. And this is whether it is in private or public sector. I know I saw one comment or a question rather that was asking how about those who are in civil service. If you can find that back end and highlight that question. And the question was about, there is no, your efforts are not being recognized. It's not a very just system in terms of all that. But like it or not, whether you're in public or private sector, as I said, we can't repeat it enough. You are going to age. You are going to have to start thinking of what is going to happen when I'm outside of this place. There are real things that people contend with. Some people are working in organizations where it's a family-run business, but if you don't, in fact, I was actually talking to someone about a particular company that used to be very well known in the past. But after a certain level, if you didn't answer the surname or you were not married to someone who answered the surname, it was known that you don't get past this level.
Yeah.
Once it's time for promotion, they go and bring one cousin or son or daughter or wife or husband, as long as you're a family member. And today, that company is like, they don't even feature. They were once one of the prime names in their sector. Now, I don't even know where they are, right? So you find that there are things for if I'm a person who is working in such a business, there are some things I'll be thinking or I should be thinking about what my next would be like. For instance, what are those kinds of intentional steps? Ian talked about this a lot. What are the kind of intentional things that people in corporate need to be doing such that it is easier for them to one day be someone outside of their ID cards? And this is not even just about the retirement conversation. It's also the conversation around who are you? What do you do? What's your, I know it's kind of cliched, but it's kind of, what is your purpose? What are you beyond the job you do? Whose lives are you touching and things like that? So what should they really be thinking about in the course of working within or out the public or private sector?
Audrey, thank you very much. Very good question again. I think the first thing everyone needs to understand, whether you work in public, whether you work in private, whether you work in family, is to get a good picture of what you should put in perspective in your general planning. Call it career planning, call it life planning. That conversation has to happen. So first of all, to professionals in here, and I really like you to hear this, your life does not really circulate around your career. It's the whole picture. I'm sorry, it does not circulate around work, which we have come to call our career, okay? If you have the whole picture in perspective, a new set of conversations will begin to emanate.
Mhm.
The first conversation would be the conversation of purpose. Why really? Because now we're talking about life, right? And it's interesting if you look at, if you listen to employees continuously, they talk about work-life balance. What really happens is that throughout the period of employment is really, really work that happens. And that's why the continuous struggle to bring in the little of life, right? Now, by the time they leave work, their work is taken out and you're left with a life that you haven't apprehended, that a life you haven't met. So what we need to do is to start from now and meet our lives, which means engage the life from the beginning, know who you are, the critical. Let me share a quick short story. I listened to some lady who took care of, a caregiver who took care of the elderly. And she was asked, what is it? What are the key things? What is it exactly that makes them die eventually? And she said 3 key things. One of it, I think, I can't quite remember, so I need to be careful about this. She said either money or their health. I'm not so sure, but I'm going to talk about the next 2. She said purpose, and she said relationships. And now, in terms of purpose, she said they get to a point and nobody's coming to visit them. Nobody comes around. No relationships built. A lot of them have depended on their nuclear family made assumptions that because I born you, you will take care of me. Forgive my pidgin English, and then what then eventually happens is that the kids go off to their own lives. Many of them even pay somebody to take, but they don't see them. That's one. Then the other thing is purpose. There's no, but very often is after retirement that people now sit down and begin to want to have the purpose conversation. Too late in the day. Well, not too. I mean, some people get it right, but at the beginning, and your work should now be scripted into the journey of purpose. So if you ask me, what should they be thinking about now? They need to be intentional. Professionals need to be much more intentional. You find out that people, when it gets to retirement point, they begin to work hard to try to extend it. That's because there is no sense of life after that. The pictures we get, the stories we hear, is that people go out and begin to die, and that's because there's no purpose.
Right.
Because this interview, the lady says, when people don't have a sense of purpose, some people say you will travel. How far can you travel? You travel and travel and travel, and you're not pursuing much.
Excellent. Honestly, as you're speaking, though, Enife, and when we come back, perhaps you would touch on this, because I hear people say, "Oh, but I don't have time. I'm so busy at work."
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to have to come back and speak to that, because a lot of people just feel that, you're talking up in the air, but we're not actually. This is so real, and we hear it all the time. So yes, you hear a lot of people that retire and then die in a very short time because they're idle. But you also hear about some people that retire, and in my view, they're just sitting on the balcony. What the way I describe it, I say, you are the one neighbor who knows everything happening on the street because you have nothing else to do. But at the same time, and because he's a public figure and a man that is respected and loved by so many, especially myself, I can say this then, that we have someone like Dr. Christopher Kolade, who is 90 and is still active and all over the place. Quite frankly, even our dear Obasanjo, he's all over the place. He's active, he's engaged, he's a global, what do they call them, peace ambassador and stuff like that. So what's this thing that flips, that narrative? We need to come back and have the conversation. But I want to come to you, Peter. Again, Banky, is to now say, let's have a legacy conversation. Because, again, I believe that as business people, what we're building, I can't understand that we spend our whole lives doing what we call hustle. The hustle, that's the word that we use, right? You're hustling, you're struggling, and then suddenly, you get to a certain point of achievements, you have some material comfort, some assets all over the place, investments, but you've never intentionally tried to articulate what those resources are and put them in a place where they're well stewarded, well supervised from a later life point of view, whether your own later life or the family you will eventually leave behind. And I just wonder, why do you think that this is? Why is it that we're so enamored by the castles we create that we're not thinking what life might look like outside of that, whether we ourselves are outside of it or our families have to be outside of it without us? So why do you think this happens, and what would you advise entrepreneurs, from that perspective of planning for later?
Okay, so I'm going to take this in two quick perspectives. The first one is that what I'm going to say affects not just the entrepreneurs, but also those in the corporate world, because it's the same. The peak time that I see is somewhere between 35 and 40. And I say between 35 and 40, one, most likely, maybe you are married, you are in good job, mid-level career, whatever it is, you're probably earning decent money and things like that. So you feel, I have time. So you can enjoy life, you can do many things. But for me, that is actually the time you're supposed to critically start planning for later life.
Right.
I have been fortunate in many ways, and it's by default in some cases. When I was 18, and then I got a scholarship. I had to go and study abroad, and they were paying us a monthly salary, and that monthly salary was like 145 naira or so, and I didn't know what to do with it. So one of my friend that was a stockbroker, I just said every month send it to my stockbroking account, buy shares for me, and by the time I came back, I was 22. By within 2-3 years, I had built my first house
Wow.
because all that money and everything.
But I want to interrupt you. I want to interrupt you and say something. You see this point you just made, I had to stop you. Pardon me, everyone, and say something. Sometimes my husband and I, we look back and we laugh and we say something that all the money we spent eating poundo and stockfish and snail in ridiculous places just for the food is so sweet or that, and it's not to say you can't go out and all that, but that you're literally talking about a time when that money would have gone towards investing in shares or a portion of it. And so it's a good time to even just kind of, it's funny, but take stock and imagine, what are you doing with your change? Is it going into Ashwebi or just frivolous things when it could be going into something that is productive and a few years down the line is going to create that nest egg for you? I'm sorry, just something I say.
No problem. Again, like I said, I was fortunate because my mom was into shares and everything, and that was the easiest thing I could think of, and that was it. But by the time I came back, I had multiple shares, dividend, and everything, and that was what got me into the property market. But that's one aspect of it. The main aspect is for us to shift our thinking. To shift our thinking. Now that shifting is an acronym, and I just want you, it's a 5-letter word, shift, SHIFT. If we can shift our thinking at that age, we are likely to be able to be okay when we retire and everything. What does that shifting means? Luckily, I'm an academic, so we always look for framework for everything. Now, the S is social. Now, social means, and that's when you talk about building relationships and things like that. Now, whether it's with family, it's friends, it's at your church place, anywhere and everywhere, there are people that are connectors. So you need to begin to connect. And when you connect, it has implication on when opportunities comes in life, people will remember you because they know what you can do. All right. So building deliberately social relationships. Even I go to parties, I do all those things. Sometimes it's tiring, but that's where I get to meet a lot of people. I don't have to visit them one by one in their houses, but we maintain those relationships. The second one, which is H, is your health. Right from that time, you are working very hard. You need to begin to think about your health. Now, it could mean having HMO when you are still doing blah, 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 and then saving up for later years, because in later years, you will not have the kind of money you are having now. Yet, your health may be falling faster than now. So you need to start planning for that. A lot of us, we don't care. We just enjoy that one. Go there. Even what you eat, all those things have implication. So take care of your health and think of your later life. The third one is very interesting, where it's I call it intellectual, which is like work and all of these things that you do. From day one, there are some people that, and Ife was talking about, coaching people to become CEOs and things like that. Some people say to themselves, in 5 years' time, I want to be on 2 or 3 boards. What do I need to do? You start planning for that. You are not even 60 yet. You are not even 50. And today, look at some corporate organizations. I am seeing sub 40 people. They are on big corporate. Plan for it. And they can really identify. So that's one. Then if and when before you retire, get into some schemes. So whether you are playing leadership role in your church, whether you are planning and getting to board, whether you are supervising thesis and things like that, if you are not actively in those things and people know you, when you stop working, that's when everything stops. The engine just stops. But when you are building everything together, then that's good. Now, let me come back quickly, and I like what and if we talked about, we don't enjoy life, we don't do this. Just as I plan for work, I plan for enjoyment. This is very
I
critical.
like that. Yeah.
For me, it's complete. I can tell you, we are just in February. I know how many trips I must make. I know how many weddings I must attend. I know this, and so all those things are in my calendar. And so I use that to plan even my leave and everything, because all of them are absolutely important. Now, the big one, financial. We earn a lot of money when we are in our peak period. Of course, the money takes a lot of, there's also other expenditure. So whether it is the children at that time, should you send the kids abroad, spend dollars, and then the rates are going up, kill yourself if you may, all those kind of stuff. And I advise people, I said, see, my university is, in quotes, not the cheapest in Nigeria, but it's quite good. And if you send your child abroad to the US, for instance, what you will spend in 1 year is what you will spend for the entire 4 years you are training this guy. And then you can send the kid for your for masters there to change outlook and all of that. But you have peace of mind. You plan yourself more and you can save more. Financial planning comes in many ways. But for me, I opened a trust fund, and then it's like a company, it's in the name of myself, my wife, the kids. And okay, up till now, they're asking me, when are you declaring dividend? I told them.
Okay, Banky. I'm going to cut you short
The
now,
last
but
one.
the last one,
The
very quickly.
T,
Yes.
and the T is timeout. That timeout is very important. Begin to understand what timeout is. Begin to enjoy it now, so that at the end of the day, when you retire, it's not strange to you. Thank you.
That's a good
Excellent.
one.
Thank you so much. I mean, I love that shift. Social health, intellectual, financial, and time out. Really
Now,
critical. Thank you for the tools. Thank you for the tools. Very, very critical. All right. So, Ian, I'm going to come to you now. And my question is again, where it was that thing about when is the best time? All right, when is the best time? Because retirement is going to happen. You are the retirement planning queen, and it's a journey you have journeyed. So, when is the best time? And especially when you think about the lives we're living today, there's so much that is going on all around us, right? We're very busy, we're very overwhelmed, inundated with issues, our own issues, issues of our loved ones, issues in our organization, so many things. And reality is that the day just spins into the day that spins into the year. I've said at least twice in the last 1 week that I don't know how come this 2023 we were all waiting for, and here we are counting down to March. Literally, my executive assistant was showing me some things happening in first week of March, and I was almost like, "What? How did that happen?" Which tells me we'll soon be in December. All right, so time is going to fly. When is the best time to start proactively navigating your next? Thinking about your post retirement life, and maybe a few snippets about what we should be thinking about from that perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you. So ideally, the best time as soon as you can. I would say that ideally, once you start getting a paycheck, then you should start putting aside some money. And you cannot invest unless you are saving already. So the culture of saving should really kick in very early in your career once you are earning a paycheck, because the sooner you begin saving, the more time your money has to grow, right? If say you begin saving at say age 40 rather than 20, there's a significant difference this is going to make on your total nest egg, because time is very powerful in this game. So waiting until, or what's till, maybe you want to wait till you're 60 or thereabouts now. I mean, and that can be very devastating, because some people don't even start, conceptualizing the retirement thing until they're about to retire. And
Right.
somehow they are sort of caught unawares. And so to hope to now be doing that can really be devastating. Because most people then realize that starting younger allows compound interest to work its magic. I know a few people that came into that, and they are so thankful that somebody had that conversation with them early in life. Because remember too that when you're in your 20s, 30s, that's when you have your least responsibilities. So a lot of time, I mean, because I mean, I see the way some of our younger people live now. They want to live the soft life, they say. So I mean,
Yes.
yes, I mean, my money is my money. I can blow it the way I like. But
Yes.
there most likely could be regrets down the line, because when you had the time to do this, you deferred it. So, because investment benefits from compounding returns, it will increase your money, over a much longer time. And so I would say start as soon as you can. Of course, there are things about conversations about, the psychological and emotional aspects of retirement, different from financial now. Those should likely come in later as you are now contemplating that, retirement, because some years of disengagement, you should start unwinding and thinking of what your life is going to be post, coming into workplace and all that. Because for one thing, once you come into retirement, your social circle will most likely shrink. I mean, just even going through your phone, you'll find that you could lose up to 70% of your contacts. And that, I kid you not. Why? Because while we are working, most of the relationships and connections we have are people that have to do with our work. So the idea, what Peter was talking about, cultivating relationships as you go along, very, very important. So, if you don't plan for that next phase of life, I'm afraid to say that there would likely be challenges, because you can't stumble on it. And I can't even tell you how often I come across this, where people feel that, oh, perhaps there's something I can do. A lot of times, a lot of things, you can do, in terms of the emotional aspect, just changing your mindset and attitude and all that. But what about the nest egg? Because all these are okay, but if you don't have the money to support you while you're in retirement, then the retirement can be a bit challenging. So when you approach with the winter years, we may discover that these finances will not be able to support us adequately, right? Um, so for some people, then, I mean, out of desperation, they want to now brace up and log in more years of work, just to try and make up. Um, some may be forced to sort of scale back on their lifestyles, to accommodate, the financial lack. And then we talk about pensions. Oh, I mean, we think it can solve all problems. No, our pensions usually cannot. The idea of investing and saving along the way is so that it will augment whatever you're getting out of your pension. So that in itself will prove insufficient, to retire on. So you, God forbid me, some people start to wind down, and sell off some assets, just to, and that is very sad. And where there are children also, some people may now call in for help from their children. And we should remember that, these our children are also just trying to grapple with life and all that. We cannot put this sort of huge responsibility on
Right.
them to care for us.
Right.
And another one of the sad trends I've seen is, that some of us have been caught up in this thing of building and living in very high maintenance mansions, you know. Um, so for those who have been caught up in that, because really, did we need those mansions, or we're just trying to fuel, some gap in us that just just to pose and all that. But as you approach retirement, you should now start thinking of winding down.
Right.
So through every phase of life, and usually there are different phases. For example, when you enter workforce is one phase. When you come into having a family, career advancements and all that, that's another phase. And that's when you now are looking at wealth accumulation, right?
Right.
Then, and you now then come in your 45 to 60 bracket. Now you are out now coming into retirement. Now you're talking about wealth preservation, estate planning. You're looking at grandchildren, funding your children's weddings and all that. Along all this, the idea is that we must always have a plan in place to make sure that our actions over these years, will deliver on the retirement picture that we painted for ourselves. My retirement will most likely be different from yours, but I need to paint that picture for myself. This is what I want in my retirement. And
Mhm.
everything I do along the way is to make sure that I'm able to realize that picture.
All right, thank you so much for that. Very, very insightful indeed. I mean, I could listen to you all evening. So the thing is, I hear you that literally, and I know one of the participants said this, that the best time to start planning is right away, right? Because in this audience, everybody's 40 and above, maybe just one or two people, maybe 30. I know one person said, I'm 42 in 40 in 2 months, and we said, okay, I mean, join us, you know. So but we are literally in that place already where we have to be thinking, oh my gosh, this is as real as it gets. Where do I need to go from here? And we're going to come back in a few minutes, and I want us to begin to have these conversations, looking at some of the questions that have been asked and beginning to say to ourselves, so what do I need to do differently? What needs to shift? Because the reality is that we don't want to become those people who, at some point in our lives where we should be relaxed, where we should be enjoying the fruit of all our labor, so to speak, then we become rather people who are dependent on others, or who are kind of like liabilities to our children. For me, that is one thing I don't even want to ever ever envisage, right? So we will
Yes.
just take a quick interlude, and then I will come back very, very quickly and have a conversation. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. So while we're waiting, I want to ask Peter, do you think that there is a cultural context? Actually, I'm going to ask this of everyone, and that'll be my last question for now until we come and take the audience questions. Do you think that there is a cultural context in which we are not as intentional about planning for our later years? Do you think that maybe this sense of community that we have, you know, we don't abide individually. It's always about the family. And though that is changing, you know, slowly but steadily, do you think that that is part of what we see manifested even in the way we transact in the workplace, and even for those of us running businesses? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's partly cultural. It's partly what we are exposed to. When we were growing up, it was normal. In fact, no, prior to my in my father's time, we also have the Brazilian roots. So the father, all the children will be in the same house. You marry into that house. The father, grandfather wants to see everybody together. That's how we grew up.
Mm,
And then after that, everybody started moving out one by one. But then we also felt that if you have aged parents, it's your responsibility to take care of them.
Mhm.
So they come to stay with you. You do. If you don't do it, you are seen as a rascal child. You are seen as
mhm.
so. Because of that, we have to put part of our resources to make that happen. However, when it came to our time, and this one is always a big one between my wife and the kids, and she would say, "I don't want to depend on any child to survive in my life." And my son in particular doesn't like to hear that thing. You say, "Oh, but you sweated for us." But so if we do, say, "No, no, no, no. Just take care of yourself."
That's
And
right.
now we're seeing all of them are working. When they will do what they want to do, but they know that that's not what we depend on. And that is very important. I said, the only thing I owe you, or we owe you, is good education. And we have given you that. You see, the rest is me and my wife. We go on cruise, we do this one, we do that one. So I
Mhm.
think now people are beginning to see that. But I give them some time, and Ian, what you were saying is very correct. I give them time to enjoy the first 1, 2, 3 years, where they will go out, Audrey, to go and eat the best of food, do this and that. After 2 years, we'll sit down and have a conversation. That
Right.
this is not it, because I don't want you to be dependent on me in life. So I will show you some of the things that I have done, and it could mean you do extra job. It could mean you could do this and you will save up to do that. So it's shifting. but it used to be largely cultural.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything, very quickly, what is your take on this? Is this cultural?
Yeah. So let me go quickly. I think to a large extent, there's the culture, and there's also the reality of our times, and it's arguable. You find out that when our parents were there taking care of us, and then taking care of their parents, um, the times where the context was, it was fitting within that context. Now, in our time, you find out that I've argued before. There's been an argument I've had with someone that we probably will be that first generation who would have taken care of our parents and switched the the tide of not being taken care of. Now, what would happen though would be a lot of people would be disappointed because they would have the expectation, like Ian speaks against, that Omugo is a retirement plan and the children are my retirement plan, right? Because Ian always says Omugo is not a retirement plan. Now, the thing is, at the end of the day, there's a huge thing around culture. We're so, like you rightly said, community oriented, and there's a great, there's goodness in that, right? But it has also affected our expectations, and we need to begin to rethink, because we are, a lot of us, well, not everyone, but many of us have brought up Western kids. You've worked so hard, sent your kids out of the country, they are Westernized. So they're learning something else, right? I love that to do sandwich generation.
It's all right. It's all right.
So that's something that we need to pay attention to. I also feel that even if you look in the Western world, they also have their culturally generated approach also to latter days. Like all their old people's homes and all those lovely things they do is also a plan, But we now, what would be good and correct would be for us to look at our context and generate an intelligent response to our context, because we can't pick and choose, or rather we can pick and choose. We can't just, place and copy all the way, copy and paste, sorry.
Right.
So I think it's some cultural, and then also our changing times, which we must pay attention to. And I also like the fact that Ian talks about young people beginning to save from now, because we didn't even do that. Yeah.
As you were speaking, something that came to mind, how in the corporate world we say that culture would eat strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
And I was just thinking that in this case, actually, if you're thinking that the culture of everybody, they look after the family, will eat the reality of the day for breakfast, is not happening, because the culture is changing. And so we have to really open our eyes and be prepared. And the thing I thought to just put out there is that it doesn't make our children bad. Some people will say, oh, they're so ungrateful. No, their context is so different. The world has shifted, and the way they think and the way they embrace life and the way they internalize things is very different.
And what they have to grapple with today.
Exactly. The things they grapple with is a very different set of realities. And so they become different kinds of people with different kinds of thinking. So if we just keep holding on to, oh, my children will look after me, we pray they do, but it can't be your fallback. Besides, even if they're looking after you and it's only that they're making sure you eat and you're looked after, but you have nothing to do, you still wake up bored and with a sense of a lack of direction. Your children can't give you that. So it's something to also think about. Yeah, we'll take your comments, just 2 minutes, then we need to go on a very quick break and come back and begin to answer the questions that we see. Thank you. Very quickly.
Okay. I just want to comment. Thank you, Udo, for bringing that, because I wanted to, when Enife was talking, to help us to understand that what we are having now is, we are now the sandwich generation, because for some of us, we're still looking after our older parents, and for some, our children have gone out, they've schooled, and they've come back. For those who have come back to Nigeria, they have come back into our homes. So we are sort of still, looking after them in some way and partly funding their lifestyles. And that is not part of the plan. If you are in retirement, you cannot be hoping to use your retirement funds to do that. because I mean that would deplete you pretty fast. Another thing also is that, yeah, I agree with Audrey. The children don't necessarily want to be mean or selfish, as we keep stressing sometimes when we're talking about the Gen Z generation, especially. Some of them are too far from home. Do you understand? So, and for some of us, what we even need is the moral support, just to see them and all that. But they are not here. We are the ones that sent them out of the country. So who is then left here to look after us in our older age? And that is a new phenomenon that is now, coming up, where people are now setting up, homes, hospices, just the way they have abroad. So that when your children now come in, they are now coming to visit you in those homes. That hasn't always been there. Like Banky said, we're just this huge family that, everybody was supporting everybody. But sadly, those are the times we found ourselves. And I mean, I have one or two friends who are intentional, because they are single parents. They are planning to, scope out these homes, see the one that will best suit them, and start paying it ahead. Because, I mean, they know that, their children are not returning to Nigeria to look after them. So that is their reality. So these are sort of things we have to start contemplating.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. All right, everyone. So we have about 30 minutes left in today's webinar. We will just do we just want to share a quick clip with you, and then we will come back to take the questions, and I'm sure the answers are going to be very rich and, something that will bless every single one of us. It's been a phenomenal conversation so far. I hope that, you're tickled in your mind. In fact, I actually hope you're troubled enough so that we don't leave this place and not do anything with the information that we have gotten. All right, so video will be playing in just a couple of seconds. Technology would always hook you somewhere. All
technology.
But this is, again, this is another important topic. How we embrace technology as we are aging. That's another thing, because it's quite important for us to definitely be on top of. Exactly. Anybody around me knows I always like to talk about tech. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Heard about this program and just read through the objectives for the program, I thought to myself, we'll dedicate the time to participating, in this program to see if it helps me to somehow manage this chaos, I would say, that I found myself in over the last few months. And without mincing words, I would say that this has been worth every minute. personal experiences of the coaches, and I mean deep experiences. People's lives experiences have been shared here, and I mean very valuable, personal to me, and deep. I've enjoyed every bit of the class. I've met great and awesome women.
It has been a privilege to be on this program. First of all, it has cleared some cobwebs in my head concerning how to live my life after my first, what I call my first phase of working life, after I took an early retirement some years ago, and how to navigate life beyond retirement, and how to also manage my next phase of life after this current second phase of working, and also to make some key life decisions. It has actually become more like a dossier that I need to be visiting every now and then to be sure that I'm on the right path to achieving my life's goals. I would like to recommend this program for everyone, especially those that are in their 40 to 60 bracket. I think if I have my way, I will encourage people in their 30s as well to have a taste of what life after 40 will be like.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your patience as we play that video. I'll come back to it in a bit. All right, so we'll go to the questions, as many as we can take in this period. I will just try to get back to the beginning. Some people are asking, first of all, I see a lot of you asking whether this is going to be recorded. And the answer is that yes, we're streaming on several different platforms and the recordings will be up, yes. So please do look out, whether you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, or it will also be on my YouTube channel. And we have, even just on this webinar, we hit over 502 at some point. Thank you for the 400 and something who are still on, and the many more who are joining online. All right, so wow, we have so many questions. Okay, let me try to find, yes. Somebody says, pardon me. Wow, there's so many. Just give me a second, a lot of comments. Yes, somebody was asking, where does a civil servant fit in? That the system does not encourage excellence but mediocrity. That's Aramide. And there is someone else who, a little further down, apart from Aramide, I remember that there is a second comment where the person is asking, I'll try and find that, a civil servant, how they're going to be able to give expression to themselves and plan. So I don't know, Bamki, you want to take that question or anything? Either of you?
No problem. First of all, I would say I wasn't a civil servant. I was a public servant. You may not know the difference if you have not, but there are many good things that come from the civil service or public service, as it were. Yes, you don't get maybe enough salary in terms of cash, but the biggest connections and relationships that I made was actually in the civil service. And I recall when my cousin was telling me that, look, there are different levels of building wealth, that relationship is the one that is at the foundation of it. Now, some of the landed properties that I got ultimately had its roots because I was part of the public service. And then they charge me the rate of public servant. If you as a private person, you are going to buy it, you will buy it times X of what I buy. So at the end of the day, we are even. That's one. Two, when you go for courses as civil servants, you guys enjoy yourself too much. It's also the time to begin to save some of those things. You have access to many things. In fact, a few people that recommended me afterwards for bigger things that happened in my life. Those people, I met them while I was in the civil service, and they saw the way in which we work together and interact with them. Nothing happened until several years after. So for me, it is important to use your civil service life very good. See, when it comes to patience, when it comes to being able to be methodical in reasoning, I got that one from the civil service. In fact, if you want to kill yourself, go and fight with one of them. They will argue very correctly at the end. This is their prayer. That prayer, there is no way. So there are lots of good things that you can build up, and somebody can pick that up and say, because this guy is a solid civil servant, he understands administration, he knows how to do XYZ, they can pick you there. There are many things I could say about it, but the advantages are with you. You just need to scout around more.
All right. So I hear you say that, if I'm in the civil service, public service, you're right, there is a difference. But what is more important is to begin to ask yourself, what do I do with my perks? Because there are always perks. How do I steward them for tomorrow rather than for today? Secondly, we've talked about the importance of relationships and networks. So it's also important to be looking at, as a public servant or a civil servant, how have I put myself forward on the job? Have I been that person who is frustrating people, or have I been that person who has been a solution provider to people? Because people do remember you. And then am I diligent at work? But I also think it's important from the context of empowerment, because you see a lot of the things when we're talking about planning for our next, there is a money conversation. Can we be real? And the money for some is some millions, for some it is tens of millions. It depends on the level you're operating at. But being able to get to a point where it's not in your old age that you're having to be calling people and saying, "Sis, help me, bros, please lend me," or having to go. Sometimes I see people who are working jobs that is clear is taking everything out of them, but they literally need it, not just for the sake of being purposeful, but they need to be able to eat. And sometimes
Yes,
when you look
ma'am.
at the trajectory of those people, you'll be surprised the lives they've lived before. So I think that in today's world where there are so many opportunities to create value and monetize value through online platforms, through taking the skills you have and applying them to some other endeavor, is something you want to begin to think about before you get to where you're asked to leave service. And it's not too late. It actually isn't. I believe that, I always say that everybody's life is 100%, and your 100%, in any race, some people start very fast and slow down at the end. Some people start slower and then suddenly they take off and they overtake everyone else. So you have to think of what works in your own context. All right. We have one question here, and this is from John Aqua, and he's saying, he's in his 50s. So how do you manage in your 50s? You're paying children's school fees, you're keeping the home financially, you're planning for retirement, and you're battling with your health. Ian, I'm going to ask you to touch on this, please.
Okay. Hi, John. I'm so sorry about your health condition. The point is, I'm sorry to say that this conversation would have been much more useful if we're having it, say, 30 years ago, but never mind, it couldn't happen. But I always say that putting aside something that you consider negligible that can then now grow over the years is still better than putting nothing aside. Some of the things we can do as well is to see how we can cut back on our lifestyle. Because where there's no way of augmenting your income, then you do not have to think of how you can cut back. So, just go through your expenses, your family expenses. What can you cut back on? If you are able to do that, then perhaps that is something that you can then approach a financial advisor with, that I can be putting this aside. And it could be in your children's school fees. Because sometimes, we might have started, paying certain fees in certain schools, not necessarily because the standard is so high, but it's what everybody else was doing. And I'm just saying this, just as an example. So you could now diligently, scope the schools in your locality and see whether you can get something that delivers good quality, but at a lower school fees. And then you can cut back, you can move your children there. I mean, so just sit with your partner and have this conversation over, a few weeks. And between both of you, you will find that perhaps there's a squeeze you can give on something that will then now go into something you can now start putting aside. The issue there is that once you are able to start putting something aside, it shifts your mindset and your mentality. And then you now become a lot more deliberate about ensuring that that which you're putting aside is thriving. So everything that comes your way now, you sort of are thinking about it in a much more objective way to ensure that that keeps going. That is the advice I have. Once again, I'm so sorry about your health.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Thank you. And just to encourage everyone else who is along this journey, the one thing that we would not want you to leave this place with is a sense of, oh my gosh, where do I start from? All right,
Yes.
because that even stifles your ability to think. I want you to trust that even if you feel you're looking at four people who have got it all figured out, a lot of us have journeyed. We didn't arrive at the same awakening at the same point in time, right? And there are many more people like that in the audience. When you are too overwhelmed with your situation, it constrains every form of creativity. I do think it's important, though, that you look for the resources that would help you, look for the networks, look for the people that can help you to brainstorm and the systems. And I'll talk a bit about the program that we just watched a bit and how that can possibly also help you to be able to create something that helps you to overcome where you are and then build that. And if I'm going to take this back to Bamki very quickly, because I see this question from Tokumbo, and since he had shares even before some of us knew what they were, I think this is a good question for him to answer. It's from Tokumbo, and she's saying she doesn't even know where her shares are. How does she get them back? But she was investing to save and not to spend. But right now, it's about that question I asked about harnessing your investments and stewarding them well. So, Bamki, any response for her? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. So first of all, when you invest in shares, it's not just to keep them. It's a very wrong notion. And I'm still struggling with my uncle up till tomorrow on this same thing. She just like to look at it and say, I have 20,000 here. See, when I invested, it was for a purpose. And the first purpose was to say, let me convert that shares into something useful. So, and that was how we went first into the property ladder. Secondly, my wife wanted to start a business. We had shares, and I wanted to use the shares to back her up so that we can get some loan. Then I said to myself, why? You know what? Sell off these shares. Let's move on. Because at that time, that was what made sense to me. And, I told you in my life, I've been very lucky. Maybe some people may be luckier than others. The year I sold all those shares, within 6 months, the shares crashed.
That's
So I
my
said,
same
thank God,
story.
I
Same
sold those
story.
things. Okay, then we moved on. But luckily, business then thrived. And because of that, we're able to do many things. Now, as at today, my kids are investing in shares, but they are not really investing in Nigerian shares alone. They are spreading their risk, offshore shares, and things like that. If you are, depending on your risk, you can even do dollar mutual funds. It's not a lot. You get about 5-6%, maybe 7%, but at least your money is in dollars. Then it's also there. There are many, many ways. You can gamble a few and say, let me do equity that is dollar. That one crashed by 25% in the last 24 months or so. Okay, came back up again. So it's a way in which you have to diversify, but you must keep watching the market. You can't just buy and leave it. No, it doesn't work like that. You keep watching, you keep seeing, you keep shifting, you keep moving. It's not to buy them for life. Okay, I hope that answers it.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. There was actually one comment from Udo, my sister Udo, where she said something. I'm just trying to find it, and this I wanted to find it because of the person in public service. Yes, I'll just find that comment. I'm sorry, there's so many to scroll through. It was something about the knowledge economy that people tend to underrate the value that is in that. So if you have all this experience, you can actually begin to package knowledge products. You can begin to create value that you can monetize by training, by speaking and all that. It's actually a great way to begin to earn extra revenues as you go, and it's not a threat to your job in any way, because literally you're still working and doing what you need to do. All right, so Bruno is asking, was talking about pension funds, and he puts question marks that, oh, we've lost Elife. So Ian, maybe you will take this. He's asking, he has a follow-up question, whether it's a good plan, pension funds?
Okay, where Nigeria is concerned, and if you are in employment, is sort of mandatory now, that you should be under the Pension Reform Act of 2024, now 2014, where your employer contributes a certain amount and you contribute a certain amount. But you can also take out a personal pension plan with an insurance company, to augment that. So those are running, pari passu with the mandatory pension scheme. I mean, where Nigeria is concerned, I actually feel that the Pension Reform Act is one of the best things that's happened to the workforce in Nigeria. Because it's a contributory scheme, it is cash backed. So really, what can go wrong? I mean, the money is in your account in your name. It moves with you from one employment to another, regardless of where you are. So that if, for some of us, we want to, but we just don't have that discipline to put aside this money. However, no matter what we say, when you stop working, that time will come when you are not energetic enough to go out there and do the hustle. The idea or the heart of this act is to ensure that you will not retire into penury, right? So no matter what, there's still something for you to call in to have a semblance of a decent life. So I think the pension is a great idea. So my advice is, of course, let the regulatory one be going on. If you can also kickstart a personal one, if you can afford it, that is, a fantastic idea. And in addition to that, of course, hopefully you have some investments that are working for you on the side. Because when you come into retirement, what you are trusting, God for is the fact that you have some money that is working for you, and you are not the one working to earn it. So that's really the idea of all of this. So, I mean, I subscribe to a pension fund any day.
Right. So we have, thank you for that. I totally agree. And insurance, I mean, I'm a huge believer in insurance. My car insured, my house is insured, my life insured. And there's so many different, plans that you can benefit from. I've literally had insurance schemes that have paid me in my lifetime. So, there's stuff out there. And when you're putting the premiums aside, it's money that, I say to people, for instance, in a month, depending on your salary band, you would find that you are going to spend at least 5-10% of what you earn on some frivolities. That's your reality. Maybe ice cream, biscuits, one a wagon, some pizza, depending on what you own. There's always that extra money that goes into frivolities. It can be as simple as that you just decide, I'm not, if you're a lady, for instance, I'm not buying hair anymore. I'll just be weaving my natural, just little things, because you have a target. Olabisi is asking this question, how you can make the right investment plan, considering the situation in Nigeria, many investments gone down the drain. And we have quite a few people who are asking, where Nigeria is concerned, how they can be sure the kinds of investment they make. I think that Peter spoke a lot. You want to take that, Ian?
I know, I would love to, because there's just something
Right.
Yeah, there's something I just want people to be aware of. It is true that there are quite a number of scams out there, and indeed, in retirement planning, we always caution that as you age, you should be very mindful of scams, because your nest egg that you've managed to accumulate over so many years, the last thing you want, God forbid, is to be scammed out of that. But I think we should note this, that people think that, there's this very high return on investment, scheme going on. One, the higher the return, the higher the risk. It stands to reason. Also, please watch out for investments that don't have any regulation backing them. People
That's
have
right.
invested in sectors. Oh, they said, oh, at Greek, there was a time that was, but there is no regulator behind it. So once you lose your money, or the person running the scheme just takes a walk, that is it. You have nowhere, no fallback, nobody to cry to. So I think those are some of the things we should look out for when we're investing.
Thank you so much. It's amazing. And as you begin to get towards where you retire, if you're going to be lucky to have a pile of money, no matter how much it is, handed over to you, let me announce to you all from now that the it's like they can sniff where your money is coming. The people who have all these schemes. And when we get older, we're not as if we're not in touch, if we're not intentional, sometimes we're not as savvy. So I like that point you make. Somebody comes and tells you would make 40% interest every month, and the banks can't even guarantee you that. You want to start thinking, am I still in that place where that's what I'm looking for? Or do I want something steadier and, like you said, backed by regulation, probably insured, that keeps me guaranteed, because you are too old to deal with the kinds of losses that you could have done when you were much younger. And if I want to come to you on this quest, it's not so much a question. Bruno, very funny one. Bruno says, Japa, Japa, Japa. Is Japa really a strategy? Is it really? So when we're talking about life transitions, indeed, I guess in today's context, it is. So I'd like you to speak to this very quickly. We have just a few minutes left, but I want us to be able to address this from a transition point of view. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts on this Jackpot thing, and so the question is, should we Jackpot or we should not Jackpot, or what do we think? I'm not
Not
even sure how
really,
to address.
actually. Not
Right,
really. What
yeah.
I'm saying is, if you have somebody who is looking at a navigation, this is what we're talking about, life transitions, and Japan might
Yeah.
be their own decision, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So what I would say very quickly is, I believe context is everything. It is true that the needs are obvious, and clearly Jackpot can be a response to it right now. But as much as possible, don't run out in a stampede. That's what I will say. Pay attention to all the necessary dynamics of your own realities. The next guy, I remember when I was much younger, when we just got out of school, and there were not many people, there were not many jobs. So this Jackpot thing was there, but not this bad, right? And I remember I was so bent on going. And I remember my big brother they had meetings. They did not want me to go because I was going with my cousins and they were all British citizens. And they were telling me, you will go there, you will wash plates and you will do all of that. And I remember one day he came in and said, you go and pray, I will pray. I'll be praying to spoil it and you pray for it to work. And we'll see who God will answer. And of course, I never went. Now, here's the thing. The thing is, you have to look at the totality of your reality. What skills are you going with? What it is it you are going to do there? What is happening there, whatever there or wherever there is, right? How does that relate to the skills that you either have or you are planning to build? I mean, intelligence. Gather a lot of intelligence. I'm not going to say don't go, but if you must go, have a good reason why you should go. And for some people, you may decide I'm going to be going for X number of years, and because this and this is what I want to realize when I get there. That's not a bad plan. Just be very sure you know exactly what's going on there. Too many people run out in a stampede. And if you go to the UK, for instance, there are no jobs. There are Nigerians all over crawling the streets looking for jobs, right? And a lot of them are coming under the whole the same visa scheme. And some of those schemes are about to change. I'm not so sure, but they're talking about it.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that's brilliant. So we're practically just a couple of minutes to the end of this. So many questions that we can't speak to today. But like I said at the beginning, this is actually the first in a series of conversations. We've themed this now for next because we want us to be looking now at the things we must necessarily think about, the things that we must necessarily do, the changes we need to make, the things we need to start, the things that need to shift for us to have a very thriving fulfilling, engaging, comfortable latter life. So we're going to be coming back with another set of speakers, or perhaps the same group, and just have this conversation and take it to a deeper level. So as we round up, there are just two things. One is that I want to share very quickly something with us, and this is in this short clip we showed earlier. It was our program. It's a program that we run that is called the Endgame program, and this is essentially a 6 weeks program. It's an immersive program that we spend time with you. Yes, exactly. And we do some deep dive sessions. There's group coaching. There's also a more deep dive one-on-one coaching. We have classroom sessions, a lot of experience sharing. And the idea on this 6 weeks is to give you clarity, is to help you to build an end game strategy deck, is to give you what we call an end game GPS. It's actually a roadmap to be able to do a few things to action out your purpose, look at your finances, and so on and so forth, and then build what we call your own personal impact strategy. All right, so we'll give you confidence for that journey ahead, because once you've taken care of a lot of things, there's just a way that you embrace life at a deeper and richer level. So we're actually inviting you to come and apply for the program. The links are going to be out on our social media platforms, and then a lot of information about how you can register and what will be involved in the program and so on. Our first run is starting from the 24th of March. Once a week we meet up to the 28th of April. And for those of you who are on the webinar today, we actually have a 10% early bird discount, which is running just for 1 week. And after that, we revert to our full price. So we have, you can reach out on our different social media platforms. You can also reach out to us via the telephone number that was shared a little earlier, 0817 300 8117. And we'll be happy to give you some more details about the program. So just to end now, I want to ask my very, very, very eminent panelists very quickly. We have 1 minute, all of you collectively. So that's like something seconds. What are the top 3 things that you believe that people should be intentionally thinking about as they age? Give me 3 words quickly. Yes, Ian?
Physical, mental, and social health.
Excellent. Danke.
I'll just give you one: shift.
Haha, I love that. That's why they want actually.
I was going to still shift and add to mine.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, what I would say is build relationships in your career right now. Build relationships and sit down and put your hands on purpose, relationships, and shift.
Thank you so much.
And I think we should not forget legacy. Legacy,
exactly. Legacy. So my word is actually my 2 words would be intentionality and legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a phenomenal time out with you, and I want to leave you with everything that we've been discussed, but with these summary words about the shift, about your relationships, about your health, about the legacy aspects, and most of all, intentionality. That you've joined this conversation today actually shows that you're well poised for a beautiful later life. But it's going to mean that you will take the learnings that we've shared in this session today and actually begin to action them. No one will do it for you because it's your life. No matter how many people are surrounding you, if you've not gotten to the point of fullness, if you've not gotten to the point of expressing everything that you carry, and also having the resources and the framework within your life to actually enjoy that stage, it's not going to end well. And that's not our prayer here. So we're very happy to put ourselves at your disposal as coaches, as facilitators, to help you to navigate every next that is ahead of you on the journey. Thank you for honoring us with your time and your presence. And we look forward to connecting with you on the next Now for Next webinar. Thank you so much. And thank you. Help me appreciate fantastic panelists. It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Enife.
Thank you.
My brother. Good night, everyone. God bless.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you at Endgame.
Oh, yes.
A few of my students are actually there, and a few of my friends, I'm seeing
Yes,
them.
Yes,
yes.
I saw
So
them
it's actually very
commenting.
interesting to see
Yes,
everybody.
I see loads of comments. The
And a few
audience
people
engagement is
joined from
fantastic.
out of Nigeria,
Yeah,
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
yeah,
we
different
Ghana,
are
from
countries,
UK, and the rest of them.
from
US, all over
England.
US.
Excellent. Yes, thank you all
yeah. I
so
saw
much.
Yes.
somebody
God
from
bless you.
Jamaica. Oh, nice.
All right,
Okay,
signing out now.
good night,
Okay.
signing out
Bye-bye.
too.
Good night.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.